President Trump is taking his America First message on the road. In less than 2 hours from now, he's going to be firing up the crowd in Tampa, Florida to drum up support for gubernatorial candidate Congressman Ron DeSantis, who's seen a dramatic turnaround in the polls after Trump endorsed him. DeSantis is getting a lot of attention for this funny pro-Trump campaign ad.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Oh, gosh. Congressman DeSantis isn't the only candidate benefiting from Trump's backing. The president is on an endorsement hot streak. Candidates he has supported have won 9 out of the last 10 contested races, including all primaries. The question is, will Democrats be able to stop this momentum in the midterms? Juan Williams. So when Donald Trump goes out on the stump, and he holds these big rallies, he's very entertaining, and he sucks up a lot of the oxygen. He dominates the local media markets, and he raises a lot of money. He's funny out there. Is that something the Democrats look at and fear, or do they want Trump, in the spotlight?
I think they welcome it. In fact, so that you talk about the streak that Trump has. I want to go back to Abe Lincoln, because Trump says he's more popular among Republicans than Abe Lincoln. And, Jesse, even for you, I think that's a bit much, right?
Honest Abe? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Look at the numbers.
I don't know. We have to go back and see if we can find a poll for Abe Lincoln. But anyway, Trump assures us he's more popular.
It was probably a Rasmussen poll.
I'm sure it was.
There, right?
And I'm sure that you would cite it. So I think that what goes on here is we've come into the era of the Trump Republican cult. Everything Trump backs a candidate, Trump's candidate immediately takes off. Even in this case, where there was a really quite popular Republican running, a guy who'd been elected for 21 years in the state of Florida, a veteran, all of a sudden, DeSantis shows up on Fox a lot and then gets endorsed by a Trump tweet, and he's the candidate. Right. All of a sudden, his numbers jump. But I think it's really telling. These guys aren't running on the economy. They're not running on tax cuts. They're running on anti-immigrant fervor. They're running on things like putting down the NFL players. So this is what we've got. I think fine. I think Democrats know that if you look at Virginia and that gubernatorial race, you look at the Alabama Senate race, you look at Pennsylvania 18, this is not Trump's time. Not when it gets to the general. He might dominate in the primaries, right, but not in the general.
What do you think about Trump in the general with these Trump-backed candidates, Dan?
Well, I think it's interesting because the 2018 midterms are being fought in two totally different battlegrounds, and both can be seen in Florida, where the president will be tonight. So one of them would be the Congressman Carlos Curbelo. He's a respected member of Congress, but he is probably the most endangered Republican. And what he's had to do in his district, which is down in Miami, is to try to distance himself from President Trump. And so there's that one. Okay, so President Trump's going to be in Tampa. That's not necessarily the Miami media market, but still he goes there. Contrast that with Rick Scott, who's running for the Senate. He's currently the governor. He wants to beat Bill Nelson for that Senate seat. And he is unabashedly pro-Make America Great Again. And he is up in the polls. So you have these two things where Scott needs him and Curbelo needs to distance himself from him. Both could theoretically work.
Right.
Both people could end up winning that. They're diametrically opposed strategies, but it does show the power and the threat of President Trump.
Do you see it that way?
Well, I do.
Of course he does.
All right, Katie.
Yeah, really.
There you go.
No, but the argument that obviously there are some areas in Virginia and places like that where Donald Trump is unpopular, but the fact that he got elected despite that unpopularity just underscores, I think, a very important thing that gets missed a lot, and that is, for all the excitement and weirdness of the 2016 election, it was all about issues. And a lot of people came out and voted for Trump. They didn't like him, and they didn't like some of the stuff he did, but they cared about, it's not anti-immigrant fervor, they cared about illegal immigration, they cared about trade, and they cared about the economy, and they said, on these issues, I think this guy, he may not be somebody I want to invite to my tea party or have a beer with or whatever, although I can't imagine any true American not wanting to have a beer with Donald Trump.
If you drink beers.
If you drank beer or anything. But the fact that they trusted him on those issues, and he was talking about issues that these people that Republicans and Democrats had both ceded. And you take a guy like Adam Putnam in Florida, who was a very popular politician from there. But that hurts him, the fact that he was in Washington so long, because he hadn't been bringing up these issues, and Trump, sloshes in and brings up all these issues that we're not supposed to be talking about.
But I was thinking about what you're saying. Just give me a second here. That I was going to pick
totally
up.
Fine.
We can't wait to hear your point. But I just wanted to rebut Charlie while I had the moment.
Okay, go for it.
That when you think about Republican party stances, I would think about free trade, right? I would think about being open to immigration as being part of the history. So that's why I think we've remade the Republican Party into the image of Donald Trump.
Well, go ahead. The only thing I would say about that, and I'll let Katie take the floor here, I believe the only thing that can really hurt the president in the midterms are two things. The enthusiasm gap.
Right.
If the Democrats are just rabid and they come out so strong and just overwhelm Republicans, or the trade issue, because if he doesn't score trade wins between now and November, a lot of the white working class voters are affected by the free trade situation right now, or may stay home.
And trade is a local issue, right? And midterm elections are all about turnout. So when we talk about President Trump going to Florida, having this rally, Phil Keating was reporting there earlier saying that people camped out overnight. They're excited to be there. There are going to be thousands of people there to support him. DeSantis has been accused of being in Washington for far too long, but he can make the argument that he's going to be a candidate like Donald Trump in the sense he's going to keep his promises if he wins the governorship, and he can govern like an executive as the president has on a number of issues. And you can take the Trump platform with illegal immigration, law and order, tax cuts, deregulation, and apply them in a local sense. So in that perspective, he may have something going for him.
Can I add one other thing to yours? The two things that could hurt the president, and I'm a little bit of a broken record on it because I don't think I have gotten the message through, and that is the registering of new voters. Because the Democrats are really good at it, they're super organized with it about it, and Republicans need to do the same. These people
could they do that there at a rally like this?
Well, these people are already probably voters. That's the thing. So you got to find the new voters. Where can you find them? New voters are usually enthusiastic voters, and so that's why you saw, like in Virginia, Ed Gillespie has more Republicans turn out than ever in the history of the state, and he loses by 9 points. If you look at the total electorate, 12% of those voters in Virginia had never voted in a gubernatorial election before. So you've got to try to find those new voters because the Democrats are definitely doing that.
And a gubernatorial race is very different than a congressional race for many different reasons. And congressional races are far more specific on issues than a governorship would be.
And we're looking at the crowd right now starting to gather in Tampa for this big Trump rally. Charlie, what do you think he's going to say tonight? He's given one of these every 2 to 3 weeks this year. Is there going to be new material? Is it going to be the same old razzle-dazzle? What do you expect?
Sure, I think there will be some new material. But I also think that one of the really appealing things about Donald Trump all along has been the fact that he has actually brought in new voters, people that haven't voted before or that have been apathetic about
them.
They
were Obama voters and they became Trump voters.
But you'd walk into a truck stop in the middle of the 2016 election and you'd walk by a couple of guys that had never, that you'd talk to them and they'd never voted before, and they'd be talking about what Donald Trump had said the night before, or that they listened to on the radio, and that, I think, under any, and it was like with President Obama in 2008, where he was running this very different campaign. It was a very hopeful campaign, unlike the 2012 campaign, but it was very hopeful, and he was bringing in new people that were very cynical about politics, and in both cases, I think it's very good for the Republic to get new people in.
So the man who usually sits in your seat, Charlie, Mr. Gutfeld, often says to me, America's watching 2 movies. And it's not the same movie, but they're running, and it's like, hey, I see something differently than you do. And in this case, the other side, the flip side of what you're talking about is that Trump activates the Democratic base in a big way. That's why that's that enthusiasm gap. And if you look at the overall poll numbers right now, remember for a while people were saying, oh, he's at 45. That's the highest he's ever been. He's now starting to go back down, and his disapproval rating still 50-something%. So as we talk about the different races, I think you have to understand that maybe the Trump movie for a lot of people is playing out because he's very entertaining. Right. You said he's very funny. Right?
Here's what I would say. I would say for the Trump voters, the movie's an action thriller, and for the Democrats, it's a horror flick. And that's what you're seeing on television.
Jesse said that horror flick, not me, Mr.
No,
President.
according
That was
to Democrats.
That was your guy.
But you brought up some approval numbers, and we ran some numbers through the Waters matrix.
Oh, no.
Historically,
yes.
okay?
Abe Lincoln in there?
We didn't go that far back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we don't have a time machine. But in the big kind of wave elections where Democrats picked up a lot of House seats in, I think, 2006 and 2008, they picked up about 20 to 30 seats or something like that. The generic congressional ballot had Democrats up 13 to 15 points going in. Now they're only up about 7 points. So historically, that's not going to be enough for them to pick up enough seats in the House to retake it.
And the president's going to be extremely involved in flying all around the country. He said he's going to be on the road 6 to 7 days a week campaigning. The question will be,
can you handle it?
I think that he can. We'll see if we can keep up.
He clearly loves
they see it as an investment in his agenda long term. So yes, he'll be on the road for 2-3 months, but they're seeing it as we have to make sure we keep the House in order to make sure the agenda moves forward long term, and so Democrats don't move forward with some kind of impeachment process too.
And you know, Donald Trump's numbers may be upside down, but you know whose are even more upside down? Nancy Pelosi. And I think that we'll start seeing Maxine Waters getting polled. Those people who've been running campaigns against them for a long time, and they're still doing it.
Yeah. So that's the fear factor. So you asked, you know, will we see new stuff at the campaign tonight, at the campaign rally in Florida? I suspect it'll be the same old stuff about immigrants, right? It'll be about Nancy Pelosi.
Not immigrants, about illegal aliens.
Yes.
Oh, no.
There's a big difference.
I keep saying at this table, this is my Dana Perino moment. I keep saying this, and you guys don't listen. But he wants to cut legal immigration in this country.
All right. That's another topic for another day, Juan. Got it wrong.